What's up, everybody? DC Next Level kicks off this week with two new titles. The first being the Lobo title by Skottie Young, and the second being the one you're here for today, Deathstroke the Terminator by Tony Fleecs. We're going to be breaking down Lobo #1 here on the show as well, but a lot of us DC fans have been waiting for Deathstroke the Terminator #1 because first, Deathstroke is an amazing character, and second, the book has a really interesting concept. In this story, Slade Wilson, one of DC's most dangerous assassins, is being hunted, and it essentially pushes Deathstroke over the edge, which just sounds like a good time. So with that said, let's dive into issue #1. All right, so the issue opens up in the apartment of Deathstroke's daughter, Rose Wilson, and she's being visited by Deathstroke's longtime friend and ally, William Wintergreen. She tells Wintergreen he's never gonna change, to which he responds, "I'm afraid that may be true, my dear, but I can't do this myself forever. It's too much." But Rose, who is on bad terms with her father, has no interest in what he's implying, and she tells him, "I can't sign on to be Slade's manservant. I can barely stand to be in the same room with him. I'm not gonna help him with his..." But Wintergreen cuts her off, saying, "What I meant was, I can't continue to be the only person in his life. I can't be in charge of keeping him balanced. I owe your father my life, but it's too much responsibility for one person. I'm getting older. He's getting older. I won't be around forever, and the life of a mercenary is..." But then she cuts him off, saying, "Wintergreen, he is not a mercenary. He's a killer." As we cut to a double-page look at Deathstroke scoping out his next mark. On the next page, we jump forward and find Deathstroke in a parking garage, and he's setting up for his next hit while talking to Wintergreen over comms. Wintergreen says, "Talk to me, Slade. Are we in position?" To which Slade replies, "In position, just about ready." However, he then asks him, "Do we have a secure line?" But the comms go silent for a moment, so Slade says, "Hello? Do we have a secure line?" Then after a pause, Wintergreen finally speaks up and says, "I talked to her this morning. I saw Rose." This obviously gets an emotional response from Slade, and he begins to ask, was she... But then he catches himself and snaps at Wintergreen about distracting him while trying to do a job. Slade tells him, "Just do the job. Give me the details. Who's the client?" But Wintergreen tells him, "I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't say." Slade then asks, "You can't say on radio?" But Wintergreen tells him, "I can't say at all. This is a blind drop." This aggravates Deathstroke even more, and he tells him, "I told you, I hate the blind drops." But Wintergreen replies, "You have, and that's why we charge extra for them." He then changes the subject back to Rose, saying, "You need to reach out to her, Slade. If you don't make things right, you could lose her." Then as Deathstroke continues to prep for his first move on the target, he tells Wintergreen, "You want to lecture me about losing a child right now? What about the target?" Which snaps Wintergreen back to business, and he says, "I'm sorry. He's a witness in a Kale Industries deposition. Whistleblower, 46 years old. Your heads-up display is programmed for facial recognition." All while we see Deathstroke loading up an ambulance inside the parking garage with a bunch of gasoline and explosives. He then asks Wintergreen, "Whatever happened to just showing me a picture?" But Wintergreen ignores him and goes on to say, "Caucasian, divorced, father of 3. To which Slade replies, "Hey, just like me." However, as Deathstroke is hot wiring the ambulance, Wintergreen says, "Is that going to be an issue?" To which Deathstroke responds, "Why would that be an issue? What's standing in my way? I see armored trucks. I assume those are full of..." At which point Wintergreen says, "Ex-special forces." Deathstroke then asks, "Still, government, private sector?" And Wintergreen tells him, "We don't have that information. They appear to be well trained. Reaching the target won't be easy. It's protective custody. Emphasis on protective. They've got him locked up tight." At which point Deathstroke replies, "So, not government then." Deathstroke then rigs the steering wheel as Wintergreen tells him, "Once you make it past the trucks on the perimeter, there are still guards at every entrance. More inside the facility." But Deathstroke just replies, "Pretty standard stuff. Anything else?" To which William snarkily responds, "Call your daughter." But Deathstroke says, "Anything else about the job?" To which Wintergreen says, "Yes, the client asked that this be done quietly." However, Deathstroke has no intentions of doing anything quietly because we've already seen him rig this ambulance with explosives. So he just says, "Yeah, I'll bet they do. Quietly is why we have to take all these cheapo jobs in the first place. You'll have to apologize to the client, Wintergreen. We're doing this one loud." He then pushes the gas pedal to the floor with the truck busting out of the side of the parking garage, all while Deathstroke is hanging on to the top and raining down fire on the convoy below. The truck then crashes into the convoy, creating a massive explosion and sending soldiers flying. At which point Wintergreen over comms tells Deathstroke, who's now emerging from the flames, "Client's not gonna like that." But in the middle of this not-so-quiet assault, we see that Slade tells Wintergreen, "Okay, William, I'll reach out," followed by what appears to be a text or a note to Rose saying, "Rose, I'm sorry. I know you said not to reach out until I was ready to change, but things are changing." We then see the remaining soldiers attack Deathstroke, but he just starts taking them down one by one, while also telling Wintergreen over comms, "You know what's strange, Wintergreen? I don't hate these guys at all, but these clients? Imagine the kind of ego you'd have to tell the world's greatest assassin how to assassinate." To which Wintergreen sarcastically replies, "Hard to fathom that sort of ego, sir. If I may, I think the client would tell you that's what the money is for, and the lavish gifts, the fancy high-tech gear." But Deathstroke tells him, him they can keep the fancy gear. All I need is my, hey, nice bike. As soldiers come flying in on motorcycles, one of which he's about to steal. But his message to Rose also continues saying, but I'm not sure change is good for me. We then cut to a security post at the entrance of the compound Deathstroke is trying to infiltrate as the phone rings. One of the guards picks up and says, security gate number 2, how can I? Yeah, of course we heard it. What was that? Some sort of explosion? Terminator, no kidding. No, absolutely. Thank you so much for the heads up. He then hangs up the phone and tells the other security guard who's sitting at the computer, hey Gil, I think I'm gonna take my 15. Followed by the guard asking, who was that on the phone? Guard 1 replies, that was Austin in the tower. He then lies and says he said to keep an eye out for a possible stolen motorcycle while trying to desert this poor guy. But when he walks out the door, he sees it's too late because there's a motorcycle full of explosives barreling toward him. And he only has time to say crap before the motorcycle barrels into the guard post, destroying it and killing both guards inside. Slade's note to his daughter then goes on to say, I get more tired lately. I get grumpy. I lash out. I'm an old man. Evolution was never in my nature. I grew up looking for direction, spent my whole young life taking orders. Wake up? Yes, sir. Go to sleep? Yes, sir. Sit here. Eat this. Point. Aim. Shoot. I was a trained weapon way before the army gave me any experimental super soldier treatment. Superhuman strength and healing factor don't make you more adaptable and open to new ideas. They make you more set in your ways, stubborn, impenetrable. We then see that Wade has made it all the way to the entrance of the compound and he radios to Wintergreen saying, I'm at the safe house door. What am I gonna see on the other side? To which Wintergreen responds, more of the same, I'd wager. However, that response does not make Slade happy and he says, you'd wager? And William tells him, terribly sorry, my friend. Details on inside the compound were harder to nail down. Soldiers from behind Deathstroke begin to fire on him while we then get more of the note to Rose that says, mostly impenetrable. My first love was exceptionally skilled at finding my weaknesses. After Adeline, I struggled to maintain close personal relationships, try as I might. Then as Deathstroke begins to battle back the 3 soldiers, he tells Wintergreen, do you think maybe you should have been tracking down intel instead of flitting around in my personal life? But William tells him, you'll have a schematic in your display. We know the route, just not who you might run into along the way. To which Slade responds, hopefully next time we break into a super secret compound, you'll have a better idea of what to expect. He then slams his staff into the ground, electrocuting the guards. However, a massive explosion goes off right behind him, sending him flying. As Wintergreen asks, what was that? And when Deathstroke looks up, he sees Carmen Lino and Bonnie Hoffman, aka Body Double, standing over him saying, you're gonna want to stay on the ground. But Deathstroke replies, no chance of that, as he attacks Carmen. Slade simultaneously kicks the gun out of Bonnie's hand while Wintergreen radios in telling him, files say they have healing factors, but not super strength. And Deathstroke replies, healing factors? Good. That means I can stop holding back. But before Deathstroke can fire on the Body Doubles, Bonnie stabs him in the chest with one of her blades, at which point we see flashbacks to Deathstroke's past, as his note to his daughter Rose continues to say, even so, I've been around long enough to experience a lifetime's worth of loss, and I've caused immeasurable losses. You know what I do, how I make my living. When you do that for your job, it can feel like purgatory. Highs aren't high, lows don't feel any different. Everything's right down the middle. Slade then pulls the knife from his chest as Wintergreen continues to tell him, Slade, we have to keep moving. The target should be right through that door. He then stabs Carmen with the knife he pulled from his chest and blasts Bonnie with his handgun, while his message to Rose continues to say, I'm not sure if I've ever felt joy. Sometimes I worry I can't feel anything at all. Deathstroke then kicks down the door to the room where the target is supposed to be while telling Wintergreen, remind our mystery client that we charge extra for metahumans. But when he walks inside the room, he finds Wintergreen tied to a chair with his throat slit. Slade just throws off his mask and runs to William while saying, no, we're not doing this. Wintergreen, Bill, you can't die, you jackass. However, just as Deathstroke realizes he can't save his friend, he finds a note taped to his chest that says, Slade, I'm taking everything. He then notices the laptop sitting on the table and that it is open to Deathstroke Inc. and all of its financial accounts, including the International Bank of Markovia, the First Bank of Gotham, and so on. And whoever killed Wintergreen has also drained every bank account that Slade has. So this is the moment that pushes Slade over the edge and sets us up for everything that's to come in this story. In fact, while looking at everything on the laptop, we see Slade's shocked face as he says to himself, taking everything. Somebody's got to Wintergreen, got me here. He had access to, they took everything, the money, every account. Who had access? I have to find the client, find who killed And as Slade is freaking out and breaking down, we also get more of his note to Rose that says, "I hope you know that you will always be taken care of. If you ever need anything, if anything ever happens, Wintergreen has access to the accounts. He loves you like you are his own. You once said that I was more than just a killer for hire, that I could do better if I tried, but I'm always trying." We then see the guards bust into the door and tell Slade to put his hands in the air and step away from the body. But you know Deathstroke isn't having any of that as he pulls his hidden pistols out of his gauntlet. He then turns around and begins to fire on all of the guards while continuing to tell Rose, "There is an emptiness inside of me, in my blood." Then as more soldiers come in and begin to fire on Deathstroke, Slade has no choice but to use Wintergreen's body as a shield. However, when he pulls the body toward him, he exposes the fact that there is a bomb on the bottom of the chair Wintergreen was sitting in. Then just before it explodes, whoever has been talking to him this entire time comes back over comms and says, "Tick, tick, Slade," which completely freaks Slade out, and he says, "Who said that?" He then screams Wintergreen as the bomb explodes, sending everyone flying. However, this is Deathstroke, so you know that explosion did not kill him. And he emerges from the rubble with the guards taking aim at him while saying, "Someone took everything. My money, my best friend." The issue then comes to an end with the last bit of Slade's note to his daughter that says, "I am changing, Rose. That's the thing. I was just a killer. Now I'm something worse." And that, my friends, wraps up Deathstroke the Terminator issue 1. We got a couple of great action beats in this issue, but largely it was setup. It was laying the groundwork for everything that's to come in this story. But I will say the setup is really solid. It's got me ready for issue 2, and it's got me invested to see both who's after Slade and what becomes of Slade Wilson Deathstroke now that he seems to have snapped a bit. Because Deathstroke is cool enough by himself on any given day, but then a Deathstroke that has completely gone off the rails, I'm here for it. But what about you guys? Did you guys dig the first issue? Are you ready for the rest of this run? Let us know in the comments down below. Other than that, we will see you next time when we talk about all things comics.